What if the woman scrubbing the floors of a billionaire's mansion wasn't who she seemed to be? In a world where power masks secrets in every corner of a luxury estate hides whispers of the past, one man's cruel mockery unleashes a storm he never saw coming. Richard Bennett, a cold-hearted business tycoon, thought his wealth gave him control over everything until he saw a simple pendant around the neck of his cleaning lady. A pendant he hadn't seen in over 20 years, one that vanished the day his wife died, and their newborn daughter was declared lost forever. Who was this mysterious young woman with emerald eyes and a haunting melody in her voice? Was it all just coincidence? Or had fate orchestrated a reunion too twisted to believe? Stay with us, because what begins as humiliation will unravel into a shocking revelation, a story of betrayal, forgotten bloodlines, and a father's second chance that could break your heart or heal it. Are you ready to question everything you think you know about love, identity, and redemption? Let's begin. No one walked up to the Wallace estate uninvited. Perched high above Santa Fe's parched desert outskirts, the massive Spanish-style villa looked more like a fortress than a home, a fitting reflection of the man who lived within. Richard Wallace, once a tech mogul turned reclusive billionaire, had buried himself in solitude after a betrayal shattered not only his fortune, but his trust in the world. He was a man feared in boardrooms and forgotten in social circles, a ghost in a mansion of glass and stone. But on one sun-stained Monday morning, something broke the rhythm. It wasn't a scandal in the headlines or a market crash. It was a woman. She stepped past the wrought iron gates with shoulders straight, despite the threadbare condition of her coat. Her name was Eleanor Brooks, 28, hired through an agency to clean the West Wing. A young woman with tired eyes, a faded duffel bag, and shoes so broken the rubber flapped with every step, shoes that didn't belong in a place like this. From the top floor, Richard saw her through the surveillance monitors. He usually never bothered with new hires. Staff came and went like passing clouds. But something about this woman made him pause. There was no fear in her eyes, only purpose. He zoomed in on her face. Green eyes, hair pulled back, and something else, a scar, faint but visible, cutting just above her brow. She looked like someone who had endured things and refused to let the world see how much they hurt. "She's new?" he asked his assistant, glancing away from the monitor. "Yes, sir. Agency says she's quiet, works hard, no complaints. Where's she from?" "Doesn't say." That was the first red flag. Richard had made his fortune off information. He believed that what people didn't say often told you more than what they did. That night, after everyone else had retired to the staff quarters, Richard couldn't sleep. He wandered the halls thinking of stocks, markets, lawsuits, ghosts. The storm outside matched his unease. Lightning splintered the sky above the estate, casting shadows along the marble floors. Then he heard something strange. Music, or rather humming, soft, tentative. A melody drifting from the old music room that hadn't been opened since his wife's passing 15 years ago. He followed it. As he neared the door, he heard the tune more clearly. It wasn't just humming, it was a lullaby, one he hadn't heard since the night his wife lost their unborn child. A private tune they had written together during those brief, hopeful months. He froze. There was no way Elena could know that song. He pushed the door open slightly, just enough to peer inside. And there she was, Elena, sitting on the piano bench, not playing, just touching the keys, gently, like someone greeting an old friend. She hummed the melody softly, as if to herself, lost in thought. He didn't say a word. He just watched. How did she know that song? And why did she look so familiar? The next day, Richard reviewed her personnel file. What he found disturbed him. There was no birth certificate. The address was a dead end. Her listed emergency contact, a disconnected number. Either the agency had made a colossal mistake, or someone didn't want her past to be found. He decided not to confront her yet. Instead, he invited her to the library on the pretense of needing help, organizing old manuscripts. She complied quietly, never questioning his request. As she dusted shelves, he asked lightly, "Do you play music?" She paused, then answered, "A long time ago, I don't anymore." He nodded. "That lullaby you hummed last night. Where did you hear it?" Elena stiffened. Her back to him. "I must have dreamed it. Funny how some songs just find you." Was she lying, or did she really not know? Moments later, she pulled a small, leather-bound book from the shelf. It slipped from her hands, falling open on the floor. As Richard bent to pick it up, something tumbled out. A photograph, old, yellowed with age. A little girl, no older than 8, sitting at a grand piano. The necklace around her neck caught his breath. It was unmistakable. A delicate gold chain with a sapphire teardrop pendant, the exact necklace he had given his wife on the day they found out she was pregnant. His hands trembled. "Where did you get this?" he asked, barely containing the crack in his voice. Elna looked at him, stunned for the first time. I don't know. It's been with me as long as I can remember." He stared at her eyes green like his late wife's, her face shaped like a memory he had locked away. Was this coincidence, or had fate finally come to collect a secret he never knew he had? Was Elena his daughter? Before he could speak again, an urgent knock came from the hallway. His lawyer, something about a will, a contested estate, urgent business? Elena picked up the book, nodded politely, and left the room without another word, leaving Richard alone holding a photo that just might change everything. "I'm truly sorry to leave you at such a suspenseful moment, but we'll continue in next part. While you're waiting, let me ask, if you found a stranger in your home who might be connected to a secret from your past, would you confront them immediately or dig deeper in silence? And what if this person held the key to something you've been mourning for over a decade? Also, I'd love to know, what country are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments, and if this story has kept your heart racing, please give it a like and send some love to help us keep telling these stories." Richard couldn't think straight. All day long, the image of that faded photograph burned in his mind, the little girl at the piano, the sapphire pendant glinting against her sweater, her smile uncannily familiar. He tried to rationalize it. A coincidence. A family heirloom passed from someone else. A random photo accidentally tucked away in a book. But in his gut, he knew better. He canceled meetings, skipped lunch. By nightfall, he was still pacing in his study like a man haunted. Meanwhile, Elena went about her cleaning as if nothing had happened. Quiet, focused, precise. But Richard was watching her now, not through cameras or file reports, but through the raw, instinctive lens of a man suddenly unsure of everything he thought he knew. He noticed how she avoided mirrors, how she never took phone calls, and how every evening after dinner she wandered to the East Wing, the one part of the house sealed since his wife's death. No one ever dared enter, except now someone did. One night just past midnight, he followed her. The hallway was dimly lit, the silence so heavy it made the old wood floors groan beneath his steps. He kept his distance, staying in the shadows. Elena moved with care, almost reverence. She stopped at a door with a silver handle, his late wife's old music room. But instead of going in, she pulled something from her coat pocket. A letter. She opened it, scanned its contents quickly, then folded it again and tucked it under the door. Richard stepped back, heart pounding. What was in that letter? Why was she leaving it there night after night? And more disturbingly, how did she even get past the locked security of the East Wing? The next morning, Richard retrieved the letter. It was addressed simply to the one I never got to meet. He unfolded the page. What he read made his chest tighten. "I don't know who you were supposed to be, but I've dreamed of you all my life. I've played your song without knowing where it came from. I've carried your photo, your necklace, your name in secret. If you can hear me, if something of you still lingers here, please help me understand why no one ever told me the truth. No signature, no explanation, just pain." He spent the rest of the day spiraling through old records, estate notes, hospital files, his wife's death certificate, her miscarriage. Or was it a single document caught his eye? A confidential medical log from the private clinic where she had stayed in her final days. The line that broke him: infant transferred to neonatal ICU. No family notification requested. What he reread it. Had his wife kept the birth a secret? Had someone taken the child before he could know? But why and who would want to hide something like that from him? Questions swirled through his mind like a hurricane. Had someone in the estate betrayed them? Was Elena the child they said had died? Or was she being used, planted here to manipulate him for money or revenge? That night, Richard confronted Elena, He asked her point blank, "Who are you?" She stared at him with those unflinching green eyes. "I don't know," she replied, "but I think you do." Her voice was quiet, not angry, not afraid, just broken. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the pendant. "I didn't steal this," she whispered. "It was the only thing I had as a baby. They said it came with me. I never knew where it was from, until I saw the painting in your hallway, the woman wearing the same necklace." Richard felt as if the floor beneath him had given way. That portrait, his wife's wedding painting, had been hanging on that wall for 20 years. "What else do you remember?" he asked. "Nothing, just flashes of piano, a woman singing, and a man." But his face is always blurred. He didn't know whether to believe her. His mind screamed caution, but his heart had already crossed a line. And then came the twist. The very next day, the family lawyer arrived in a panic. "Richard," he said, breathless, "someone's filed a claim against your estate. A woman claiming to be your late wife's nurse. She says a child was born alive and hidden." Richard turned pale. That nurse had vanished after his wife's death. Everyone assumed she had moved on. But now, she was back. The lawyer handed him a document. At the bottom of the page, 2 words chilled him: Elena Brooks. Was it a coincidence? Was the nurse trying to help Elena? Or was Elena working with her? And now the question becomes, what would you do if someone showed up with a story so unbelievable it made you doubt your own memories? Would you demand proof or listen to your instincts even if they led you into a deeper mystery? And if you were Richard, would you risk your heart again for the chance at redemption? Or close the door before the truth shatters you completely? I'm truly sorry for cutting off the story here, but next part will answer everything. Before we go on, how do you think this will end? Will Richard discover the truth or fall into a trap he never saw coming? And one more thing, where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments, and if this story stirred your curiosity, please like the video and help us keep these mysteries alive. The rain fell harder that night, drumming against the mansion windows like a countdown. Richard stood in his study, gripping the letter he'd just received. It was from the nurse Angela Whitmore, the woman who had disappeared right after his wife's death. Her message was brief, but devastating. "I'm ready to talk. Meet me tomorrow alone." The address led to a small cabin in the Catskills, a place Richard hadn't been to in years. As he drove up the winding road, trees swaying under the storm's howl, his thoughts raced. Would she confess to hiding his daughter? Was Elena truly his child? Or was this one final cruel lie? The door creaked open before he knocked. Angela looked older, worn by time and guilt. Her hands trembled as she gestured for him to sit. On the table sat a weathered box covered in dust. "What you're about to hear," she began, "is the truth I should have told you 2 decades ago." Angela told him everything. His wife had gone into labor early, unexpectedly. The baby was born alive but fragile. Complications arose. In the chaos, his wife panicked, fearing Richard would reject the child due to a hereditary illness that ran in her family. She begged Angela to protect the baby, to hide her until she could explain everything. But his wife never got that chance. She died days later from an undetected clot. Angela, fearing she'd be blamed, left with the child and falsified the records. She raised the girl for several years, then placed her in a small private foster system under a new identity. That child was Elena. Richard's chest tightened as the weight of 2 decades crashed down on him. His daughter had been alive all along, raised in silence, lied to, and somehow, by fate, by divine irony, she'd walked back into his life not knowing the truth, not knowing who he was. Just a photo. A song, a pendant. He stared at the box. Angela pushed it toward him. These were her mother's things. Letters, journals. The pendant was a gift from you. Richard opened the box with shaking hands. Inside were pieces of a life stolen by fear. His wife's final diary entries, her plans to reveal everything, her hopes that someday Richard would meet the daughter she never got to introduce. But there was one letter still sealed. It was addressed to Elena. Richard read it silently. "My sweet girl, if you're reading this, then somehow the stars brought you back to where you belong. I'm sorry for the lies, for the pain, for not being there. But please know your father is not the villain. He is the love of my life. And I know, if he ever finds you, he will love you with a depth that nothing can destroy. Mom. The words blurred through Richard's tears. He drove back through the storm like a man reborn. By the time he returned to the estate, dawn was breaking. The mansion looked the same, but everything had changed. He found Elena in the music room, her hands resting on the grand piano keys, the same melody echoing softly from her childhood dreams. When she looked up, he didn't hesitate. "Elena," he said, voice shaking, "I know who you are." Her breath caught. He held out the letter. She read it slowly, then again. Her hands trembled. When she looked at him, her eyes were no longer guarded. They were wide with pain and hope. "Is it true?" she asked. "Yes," he whispered. "You're my daughter." Silence fell between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of every unsaid word, every missed moment, every broken piece finally falling into place. Elena stepped toward him, tears running freely. "I thought I was nobody," she said, "but all this time, you were everything," he said. And in that moment, in that stillness, two shattered lives came back together, not in perfect harmony, but in something more powerful: forgiveness. Over the following weeks, Richard introduced her to the world, not as an employee, not as a stranger, but as his daughter. The media buzzed, the estate was shaken, but he didn't care. He had a second chance, and this time he wouldn't waste it. But here's a question for you. If you were Elena, would you forgive the nurse who raised you in lies? Or would you seek justice for the years lost? And if you were Richard, would you be able to trust again after so many layers of betrayal? I'm truly sorry to pause our story here, but I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think about this journey? Was it satisfying, emotional, unbelievable? If you felt touched by this story, comment no 3 below. If it was just okay for you, drop a no 2. And if you felt it missed the mark, don't hold back, type no 1 and tell us why. Also, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching from right now? If this story meant something to you, please like, share, and spread the love. Every tap helps us keep telling stories that move hearts and open eyes.